Okay, we're cresting the shaft. This is with a Boning commercial arrow crester, shaft crester, I guess. First I start with the light colors, and see, that's my pattern there. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. Some people have them all drawn out and have little markers and things they use, pieces of paper, whatever. I just set the arrow there, it's close enough. I got my brushes already picked out, so I'm ready to do this. It's one of the fun things of building arrows, is that there's so much art that goes into it, you know. Art and science, that's pretty much what it is. And I have another video where I do this, but I'm doing this on a homemade jig. I use a screw gun, cordless screw gun, drill, whatever you want to call it. And I have a wooden jig that I built, and I have a nut and a bolt, and as I turn the bolt I can do the speed of the drill, increase it or decrease it. And that's on a different video if you're looking at the videos that I have. If you want to build one of those, they say you don't need to buy these things. I came into a pretty good deal with these, that's why I got them. Otherwise I wouldn't have gone out and done it. This doesn't do any better job than the homemade one. Not really. It's kind of fun. Takes a little bit of time. But when you're done, it really does look good. Just following the pattern right across, you know, from the other arrow. Like I said, I start off with the light colors first. And then go to the darker colors. I don't have very good light in here. I don't know. Kind of hard to see. I need a couple bulbs that got burned out of that light. I need to change them out. Okay. I'll dip them later. I just want to get an idea how this is done. Show you how it's done. You probably don't see much of the yellow, but you'll see this red, I guarantee it. The color of the shafts is called Arctic White, and that's a color that I got from Rose City Archery. They build bear arrows, arrows for bear, and this is an actual color that they used I think in the 60s and maybe 50s. Late 50s, early 60s, they built arrows, Bear did, and this was one of their colors. And when I was a kid, I used to have a paper out. I delivered the Des Moines Register. And I'd make $8 every 2 weeks. I'd go collecting. And after I paid the paper, you know, what they had, they had coming to them, I got to keep the rest, and that usually ended up being about $8. So I had bows and arrows when I was a kid, and I used to go down to the hardware store. For some reason this is not, what's going on here? Anyways, I go down to the hardware store, and I would buy arrows. Well, I was in about 3rd grade. I still remember this. This is a fun little story I'm going to tell you. Let me see. Yeah, okay. Silver really brings out, silver always looks good. If you can outline really fine silver around your edges, silver looks good. So anyways, like I was saying in the story, I was in 3rd grade, had that paper out, $8 every 2 weeks after I got done collecting. And I'd buy bicycle things. I'd go to that Kipple's hardware store, and in the corner, you know, the hardware store, in those days there were no Cabela's or any of that stuff. You know, you got it at your hardware store. Sporting goods stuff. Bullets, ammunition, arrows in my case, bicycle parts. I remember buying pedals there. I remember buying bearings there for my pedal bike. Bearings for the gooseneck and bearings for the crank, believe it or not. I remember even just buying one pedal. So anyways, kind of fun. Amazing what they had there. Everything needed, pretty much. They had, in the corner, they had a sporting good area, and they had arrows there, and I'd go there and I'd buy arrows quite a bit because I'd lose them or break them, or feathers would come off or something, you know. Or I'd shoot them straight up in the air and they'd land in the street and bust the tips off and things like that. The knocks would go flying. So one day I went in there and they had an arrow this color, and it said bear, and it had, you know, really nice fletchings, and it had one of these target points that I'd never seen. One of these points like this. Most of the points on my arrows are these little aluminum things. And I saw that point, and I saw that arrow, and that arrow was bigger and heavier than the other arrows I'd been accustomed to buying there. And it said bear, and I thought, you know, I'm just in 3rd grade. I'd never even heard of bear archery back then. It said bear, and I thought, wow, this would be an arrow that you could hunt bears with. That's what I thought. I didn't realize it was bear archery's arrow. And you know, and this Kipple's Hardware was selling it. But it was this color. It was that Arctic white. And I thought it was the coolest thing. But I still remember to this day, believe it or not, I remember I bought that arrow. It was like $2.79. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And the other arrows were usually like $1.25, or right around there. So this arrow was, you know, over twice as much. And I walked home with that arrow, and I still remember looking at it, walking past my grandma's house on 1st Street, and, you know, thinking, I can't wait to shoot this arrow. And I got a plan. I know right where I'm going to shoot it. So what I did was, I ended up going to where we live. There's what they call the Horseshoe Pond, and that place is just right across the railroad tracks from where I grew up. And back this off. I took that arrow, went to the Horseshoe Ponds. There's a little strip of land between the ponds, and I had my bow, and I had that brand new arrow, and, you know, I was all excited. I couldn't wait to shoot it. It was longer than my other arrows, so I thought maybe I could pull it back further and I'd get more out of it. So what I did, there used to be a dirt bike trail that went in between the two ponds. We would set up jumps and things and jump our bicycles, and there was a row of, or there were several mulberry trees. So it was a place where kids hang out. You know, they'd eat mulberries and things, and they'd fish in the pond, swim, whatever, ride our bikes, jump on there. It was a place where everybody hung out. So I took that arrow and that bow of mine and walked over to the Horseshoe Ponds in that middle spot, and I aimed it straight up in the air. And I thought, man, this is going to be awesome. That's what I intended to do with that arrow the whole time. I'm going to let this thing fly. So I pointed it straight up because I knew there was a pond on each side. I had to be careful, and I just let her fly. And that arrow went up, almost out of sight. That's how high up it went. And then when it came down, it stalled out. And then when it came down, it kind of did its back and forth, and it straightened up. And I was watching it coming down and down and down, and right in the pond it went. And it didn't go in the deep pond where people swam. It went in the pond by the highway, which is the shallow pond that was full of seaweed and moss and crap. And I ran over there to the edge of the bank, and I remember looking, thinking, oh, it'll come up. And it never came up. It must have went down and sunk in the mud and stuck. And I thought, well, these are wood, just the end's metal. Maybe it'll float. So every day, before school and after school for probably 2 weeks, I went over to the horseshoe pond to the spot where I did that and looked for that arrow to see if it had washed up on shore. I get out there and I see which way the wind was blowing, and I'd head towards that side of where I think it would have hit. Never did find it. Never found my arrow. My arrow I thought was good for killing a bear. I did not realize it was a bear archery arrow until later on in years. And I looked on eBay and I saw a set of arrows that was for sale, and they wanted like $150 for them. It was 6 of those arrows. And so anyways, now that I own a bear polar bow, I thought it'd be fitting to have the Arctic white arrows, and they do look good. They're really beautiful arrows. I got that red, the red cock feather that goes good with the red there, and the white. They're beautiful. Got some yellow in there to match my bow. My bow's yellow, so. Anyways, that's how you do a crest. I just thought I'd add that fun little tidbit of a story in there. It was almost half a week's wages for me, I guess, if you think about it. And one flight of the arrow, and it was in the pond. Kind of funny how we can remember things so far back, in detail.